What would you do if your child begged not to go home but was too terrified to tell you why? I never thought I would be the kind of father who had to fight the courts to protect his own son, but here I am, sitting in my lawyer's office with photographs of bruises on my 9-year-old's back, and I can barely keep my hands from shaking. Let me back up and tell you how we got here, because this story does not start with bruises. It starts with a feeling in my gut that something was wrong, and me being too afraid to trust it. My name is Liam Torres. I am 35 years old, and I teach 4th grade at Riverside Elementary. My ex-wife Mia and I divorced 3 years ago. It was not ugly. We just grew apart, wanted different things, the usual story. We agreed on a custody arrangement that gave me Wednesday overnights and every other weekend with our son Oliver, who was 6 at the time. Oliver has always been my whole world, this bright, energetic kid with ADHD who struggles to sit still but has the biggest heart you have ever seen. He loves dinosaurs, building things with Legos, and asking approximately 700 questions per hour. I have always been a gentle parent. It comes naturally to me, maybe because I work with kids all day and I see what positive reinforcement can do. Maybe because my own dad was harsh and I swore I would never be that way. When Oliver acts out, we talk about it, we work through his feelings, we establish consequences that make sense. Timeouts, lost privileges, natural consequences. It works for us. Oliver is a good kid, he really is. He just needs patience and structure and understanding. Mia was always more of a disciplinarian than me, but nothing extreme, just more quick to raise her voice or send him to his room. After the divorce, we had our share of disagreements about parenting styles, but we made it work. We communicated. We put Oliver first. Then, about 8 months ago, Mia started dating someone new. His name was Wade Barrett. He was 41, a former Marine drill sergeant who now worked as a security consultant. They met at her gym apparently. She seemed happy, and honestly I was glad for her. I wanted her to move on, to find someone who made her feel fulfilled in ways I could not. They got married 5 months ago, which felt fast to me, but it was not my business. Mia was an adult, she could make her own choices. Wade seemed okay the few times I met him during custody exchanges. He was quiet, stern, gave me firm handshakes and looked me straight in the eye. I remember thinking he was intense, but not necessarily in a bad way. The first sign that something was off came about 3 months ago, during one of my Wednesday pickups. Oliver got in the car and he was quieter than usual, his shoulders hunched, his dinosaur backpack clutched against his chest like a shield. I asked him how school was and he just said fine. I asked him what he did at Mom's house the night before and he said nothing. This was not like Oliver, my kid who normally talked nonstop, who told me every detail of his day, who made me listen to facts about velociraptors until my ears hurt. I tried again. Hey buddy, you okay? You seem kind of down. He looked out the window and said, I am just tired, Dad. But he was not tired. I could tell. He was something else, something I could not quite name. Sad maybe, or anxious, or scared. Over the next few weeks, the changes became more obvious. Oliver started having accidents at night, wetting the bed, which he had not done since he was 5. He started complaining of stomachaches every time he had to go back to Mia's house. He became clingy during our time together, following me from room to room, asking if he could sleep in my bed, having meltdowns when I dropped him off on Sunday evenings. I called Mia. I said, hey, have you noticed Oliver seems different lately? He seems really anxious. She got defensive immediately. He is fine, Liam. Maybe he is just acting out because he misses me when he is with you. That stung, but I tried to stay calm. I do not think that is it. He is having nightmares. He is wetting the bed again. Something is bothering him. There was a long pause. Then she said, Wade thinks Oliver needs more structure. Maybe that is what this is about. He is adjusting to having rules. Wade thinks, I repeated. What kind of rules are we talking about? Just basic stuff, she said quickly, expectations for behavior, consequences when he does not follow them. It has actually been really good for him. But it did not sound good, and it did not feel good, and when I asked Oliver directly what these rules were, he looked terrified and said, I cannot tell you, Dad, I will get in trouble. That was the moment I knew something was really wrong. I pushed gently, buddy, you can tell me anything, I will not let anyone get mad at you for talking to me. But Oliver just shook his head, eyes filling with tears, and said, Wade will know, he always knows, and it will be worse. It will be worse. What does that mean, Oliver? He would not say another word about it. I reached out to his school counselor, Mrs. Emma Palmer, who I knew from parent-teacher conferences. I explained the situation, the behavioral changes, the anxiety, the fear of going home. She said she had noticed changes too, that Oliver had become withdrawn in class, less participative, and that he had been falling asleep during reading time, which was unusual for such an active kid. She agreed to keep an eye on him and let me know if she observed anything concerning. 2 weeks later, she called me at work, her voice tight with worry. "Mr. Torres," she said, "I think you need to see something Oliver wrote." I left school during my lunch break and drove to Riverside, my heart pounding the whole way. Mrs. Palmer met me in her office and handed me a piece of lined notebook paper with Oliver's handwriting on it. The assignment had been to write about a place where you feel safe. Oliver had written, "I feel safe at my dad's house because he does not yell or make me do exercises until I cry. I wish I could stay there all the time. Sometimes I think about running away, but I am not brave enough. I do not want to get in trouble. Wade says running away is for cowards and cowards get what they deserve." I read it 3 times, my hand shaking, my throat tight. "What does he mean by exercises?" I asked. Mrs. Palmer shook her head. "I do not know, but I am concerned. This language about not being brave enough to run away, about getting what he deserves, this is not normal for a 9-year-old. "I need to document this," I said. "Can I take a picture of it?" She hesitated. "Technically, I am supposed to keep student work confidential, but given the circumstances, I think you should, and Mr. Torres, I am going to have to file a report with the school social worker." "Do it," I said. "Please do it." That night during our Wednesday custody time, I tried to talk to Oliver again. I sat him down on the couch and said, "Buddy, your teacher showed me what you wrote about feeling safe. I need you to tell me what is happening at Mom's house. I promise I will protect you." Oliver started crying, big heaving sobs that shook his whole body, and I pulled him into my arms and let him cry it out. When he calmed down enough to talk, he said in a small voice, "Wade makes me do push-ups when I talk back, like 50 of them, Dad, and if I cannot finish them, he makes me start over. And one time I lied about eating a cookie before dinner and he made me take a cold shower until I admitted it. And he makes me hold my textbooks out with my arms straight when I cannot focus on my homework. And it hurts so bad, my arms shake and he says I am weak." I felt like I was going to be sick. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Since he moved in," Oliver whispered. "Mom said I have to follow Wade's rules now because he is the man of the house." "What does Mom say when this happens? Does she try to stop it?" Oliver shook his head. "She just goes to their bedroom. She says Wade knows what he is doing because he trained Marines." I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to Mia's house right then and drag my son out of there and never let him go back. But I knew I had to be smart about this. I had to build a case, because without evidence, no judge was going to modify our custody agreement based on my word alone. I called my lawyer first thing the next morning, a woman named Claire Murphy who had handled my divorce. I explained everything, the behavioral changes, the essay, Oliver's description of the punishments. She listened carefully and then said, "Liam, I believe you, but here's the reality. What you have described could be argued as strict parenting rather than abuse, push-ups and cold showers and holding books. These things are not illegal on their own. We need physical evidence, medical documentation, witness statements, something concrete." "So what do?" I asked. "Just wait for him to get hurt badly enough to leave a mark." "I know how terrible that sounds," she said gently, "but yes, essentially we need documentation of physical harm. Or we need Oliver to disclose to a mandatory reporter in a way that triggers a CPS investigation." I felt helpless, trapped, like the system was designed to protect the abuser instead of the child. I started documenting everything. I kept a journal of every conversation with Oliver, every behavioral change, every concerning statement. I took photos of his tear-stained face after I picked him up. I emailed Mrs. Palmer to create a paper trail of the school's concerns. But it was not enough. I could feel it, and meanwhile my son was suffering and I could not stop it. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning when I picked Oliver up for my weekend custody. It was early October, still warm but not hot, maybe 75 degrees. When I pulled up to Mia's house, Wade answered the door instead of Mia. He was in workout clothes, sweat on his forehead, and Oliver was standing behind him looking pale and scared. "Hey, Oliver," I said, trying to sound cheerful, ready for our weekend. Oliver nodded but did not move toward me, and Wade said, "He can go in a minute. We are just finishing up his morning exercises." "Morning exercises," I repeated. Physical training, Wade said. He mouthed off to his mother yesterday, so he is doing bear crawls in the backyard, builds character and discipline. I felt my jaw clench. It is 90 degrees in the sun, Wade. He is 9 years old. It is 75 and he is fine, Wade said flatly. I did the same training when I was 8. Kids today are too soft. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to shove past him and grab my son and leave, but I forced myself to stay calm. Can I just take him now? It is my custody time. Wade stared at me for a long moment, then stepped aside. Yeah, he is done anyway. Oliver practically ran to me, and as he squeezed past Wade to get out the door, he flinched away from him, and I saw Wade notice it too, saw something flash in his eyes that looked like satisfaction. I got Oliver in the car and waited until we were down the block before I said, "Buddy, are you okay?" He nodded, but he was trembling. "I need to see something," I said gently. "Can you lift up your shirt for me?" "Dad, no," Oliver said quickly. "It is fine." "Please, Oliver, I need to know if you are hurt." After a long moment, he lifted his shirt, and I had to pull over because my vision went blurry with rage. There were bruises on his upper arms, finger-shaped marks where someone had grabbed him, and bruises on his upper back, dark purple and yellow, like he had been shoved or hit. "Who did this?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Wade," Oliver whispered. "I dropped a plate on accident and he grabbed my arms and shook me, and the back ones are from when he pushed me into the wall because I could not finish the push-ups." "I am taking you to the doctor right now," I said. "No, Dad, please," Oliver begged. "Wade will know I told. He said if I ever tell anyone about discipline, I will regret it." "Oliver," I said firmly, "you are not in trouble. Wade is in trouble. What he is doing is not discipline, it is abuse, and I am going to make sure he never hurts you again." I drove straight to our pediatrician's office, Dr. Sebastian Hayes, who I had called from the car and who agreed to see us immediately even though it was a Saturday. Dr. Hayes examined Oliver carefully, took photographs of every bruise, measured them, documented their locations and stages of healing, and asked Oliver gentle questions about how he got them. Oliver told him everything, his voice small but steady, and Dr. Hayes listened with a grave expression. When he was done, Dr. Hayes said, "Mr. Torres, I am a mandatory reporter. I am required by law to file a report with Child Protective Services. These injuries are consistent with physical abuse." "Please do," I said. He made the call right there, spoke to a CPS caseworker, described the injuries and Oliver's statements, and was told someone would be in touch within 24 hours. From the doctor's office, I called Claire Murphy, told her what we had found, and asked her to file an emergency custody motion immediately. "I will draft it today," she said, "and we will file it first thing Monday morning. In the meantime, do not take Oliver back to Mia's house. If she tries to pick him up, tell her you have concerns for his safety and that you have filed for emergency custody." That evening, Mia called, her voice tight and angry. "Wade told me you made a scene this morning. What is your problem?" "My problem," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "is that your husband has been abusing our son. Oliver has bruises all over his body, Mia. I took him to the doctor and Dr. Hayes filed a CPS report." There was a long silence. Then she said quietly, "What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the fact that Wade grabbed Oliver hard enough to leave finger-shaped bruises on his arms, that he pushed him into a wall hard enough to bruise his back, that he has been subjecting our son to physical punishments that are abusive." "That is not," she started, then stopped. "Wade does not abuse him. He disciplines him. Oliver is defiant and disrespectful and he needs structure." "Mia," I said, "listen to yourself. You are defending a man who hurt our child." She hung up on me. The next morning, Sunday, a CPS caseworker named Amelia Rodriguez called me and asked if she could come interview Oliver. I agreed immediately. She arrived an hour later, a kind-faced woman in her 40s with a briefcase full of forms. She spoke to Oliver alone first, in my living room while I waited in the kitchen, my stomach in knots. When she came out 30 minutes later, her expression was serious. "Mr. Torres," she said, "based on Oliver's statement and the medical documentation from Dr. Hayes, I am opening an investigation into allegations of physical abuse. I will be contacting your ex-wife and her husband today, and I am recommending that Oliver remain in your care until we complete our investigation." "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was Wade, his voice low and furious. "You have no idea what you have done," he said. "You have turned this into something it is not. I was teaching that boy discipline and respect. You were hurting him, I said. He hung up. Monday morning, Claire filed the emergency custody motion, supported by the medical records, the CPS report, Mrs. Palmer's statement about Oliver's concerning essay, and Oliver's own testimony. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for Wednesday. On Tuesday, I got a call from a woman named Patricia Miller. She lived 2 doors down from Mia and Wade, and she said, "Mr. Torres, I do not know if this helps, but my daughter Sophia is 10 and she plays in the backyard a lot. She has seen your son in Mr. Barrett's yard several times doing exercises. And last week she saw him doing some kind of crawling thing in the heat and she came and got me because she was worried about him." "Did you see it too?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "I watched from my window and took some photos on my phone because it seemed wrong. I did not know what to do with them, but when I heard there was a CPS investigation, I thought maybe they could help." "Can you send them to me?" I asked. She did, and the photos were damning. Oliver on his hands and knees in the grass, in full sun, his face red and sweating, with Wade standing over him with his arms crossed, and a timestamp showing it was taken at 1:15 in the afternoon when it was 95 degrees. I forwarded them to Claire immediately. The emergency hearing was the most stressful day of my life. I sat in that courtroom with my hands clenched in my lap while Claire presented our evidence, the medical records, the photographs of bruises, the pictures from the neighbor, Mrs. Palmer's written statement, and the CPS caseworker's preliminary report. Mia's lawyer tried to argue that Wade's methods were simply old-fashioned discipline, that Oliver was exaggerating, that I was overreacting because I was jealous of Mia's new marriage. But the judge was not buying it. She looked at the photographs of the bruises, read Oliver's essay, reviewed the medical documentation, and said, "I am granting Mr. Torres temporary full custody pending the outcome of the CPS investigation. Mr. Barrett is not to have any contact with the minor child, and Ms. Torres's visitation will be supervised until further notice." I almost cried with relief. Over the next 2 months, the CPS investigation continued. They interviewed Oliver multiple times, interviewed Mia and Wade separately, spoke to neighbors and teachers, reviewed medical records, and ultimately substantiated the allegations of physical abuse. Wade was charged with child abuse, a Class D felony in our state, and Mia was told she would need to complete parenting classes and end her relationship with Wade if she wanted to regain any custody. It took her 3 weeks to file for divorce from Wade, and I will be honest, part of me was angry it took her that long. Part of me could not believe she had chosen him over Oliver even for those 3 weeks. But another part of me understood that she had been scared and manipulated and financially dependent, and that she was a victim too in some ways. She completed the parenting classes, started individual therapy, and asked if we could do family therapy together with Oliver to work on rebuilding their relationship. I agreed, because despite everything, Oliver deserves to have a relationship with his mother if it can be a healthy one. It has been 6 months now since the emergency custody hearing. I have full custody of Oliver, and Mia has supervised visitation every other weekend, which is slowly being increased as she proves she can protect him and prioritize his needs. Oliver is doing so much better. His anxiety has decreased dramatically. He stopped wetting the bed within 2 weeks of feeling safe. He is back to his talkative, curious, energetic self. He is thriving in school, and he has started seeing a child therapist who specializes in trauma to help him process what happened. Wade took a plea deal to avoid trial. He pled guilty to a reduced charge of reckless endangerment and got a suspended sentence with probation, which felt like too light a punishment to me. But at least it is on his record, and he is prohibited from having contact with Oliver. Mia and I have slowly rebuilt a co-parenting relationship. It is not what it was before Wade, but it is functional. She has apologized to Oliver more times than I can count, and she is working hard to regain his trust. Last week, Oliver told me he is glad he told the truth, even though it was scary, because he feels safe now. That is all I ever wanted for him, to feel safe. Looking back, I wish I had acted sooner. I wish I had trusted my gut from the beginning. I wish I had pushed harder and demanded answers and not worried so much about going through proper channels. But I also know I did the best I could with the information I had, and ultimately, I protected my son. If there is a lesson in all of this, it is this: trust your instincts when it comes to your kids. If something feels wrong, it probably is, and do not wait for permission to advocate for them. Be loud, be persistent, document everything, and do not stop until they are safe. Because at the end of the day, our job as parents is not to be liked or to keep the peace or to follow custody agreements blindly. Our job is to protect our children, no matter what it costs us. And I would do it all over again in a heartbeat.